My younger brother disappeared inside a town that doesn't exist on any map. The police believed he crashed somewhere in the mountains. They searched for nearly 2 weeks before giving up. I never believed them. 3 weeks after he vanished, I received a voicemail. It was my brother, Calder Voss. He was crying. Behind his voice, something was slowly learning how to say my name. Calder loved exploring abandoned places, forgotten mines, old hospitals, ghost towns. If people avoided it, he wanted to see it. One day he called me about a mining town called Bellwether. He said it had been abandoned in the 1950s after a disaster underground. The strange thing was that I couldn't find a single official record of it. No maps, no newspapers, nothing. He only laughed and sent me 3 blurry photos. The first showed empty wooden houses. The second showed a church with a crooked bell tower. The third showed a giant bell standing in the middle of the road. Written beneath it were the words, "When the bell rings, don't move." The next morning he drove there. Around noon he texted me. "Found the road." 20 minutes later, another message appeared. "There are people here," I replied instantly. "Then leave." Instead, he sent one last picture. Several people stood beside the road with their backs turned toward him. When I zoomed in, I noticed something enormous hiding between the trees behind them. A gray arm wrapped around a pine trunk, far too long to belong to any human. I called him immediately. He answered without speaking. Then I heard a bell. One deep metallic ring. His breathing became frantic. "They all turned around," he whispered. "What do they look like? They don't have anything above their mouths." The call ended. Search teams never found him. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at 2:07 a.m. It was Calder. "I'm still in Bellwether," he whispered. His voice sounded weak. "They hide beneath the church during the day. Don't eat anything they give you." I asked where he was. "There isn't much time." Something heavy scraped across the ground. Then another voice copied mine perfectly. "Merrick!" Calder whispered desperately. "Don't answer anything that sounds familiar." The voice repeated my name. Then it changed. It became our mother's voice. "Merrick, your brother needs you." Calder screamed. The phone went silent. Then his voice calmly whispered, "Turn your headlights off when you reach the mountain." The next morning I drove there alone. Near mile marker 81, I found nothing. Remembering Calder's words, I switched off my headlights. Suddenly, a narrow dirt road appeared where no road had been before. At its entrance stood 2 wooden posts covered with human teeth. I should have turned back. Instead, I kept driving. The deeper I went, the quieter the forest became. People stood between the trees, facing away from the road. None of them moved. One little girl slowly raised her arm and pointed into the woods. Something unbelievably tall walked beside my truck between the trees. I only saw its legs. They bent in impossible directions. Then Bellwether appeared. Lights glowed inside old houses. Smoke rose from chimneys. People watched silently from every porch. They all had eyes, but none were inside their faces. Each person held their own eyes in their hands. Some carried jars filled with dozens more. At the center of town stood the giant bell. It rang. Everyone froze. Remembering the warning, I stopped moving. Something climbed down the church. It looked like a giant spider wrapped in stitched human skin. Instead of a face, it had a vertical mouth, filled with hundreds of tiny human teeth. Faces pushed beneath its skin as if trapped inside. It walked between the frozen townspeople, smelling each one. When it reached my truck, it whispered, using Calder's voice. "You came." Inside its open mouth, I saw a human hand. Calder's ring was still on one finger. Another bell rang beneath the church. The creature instantly turned and crawled away. I grabbed my flashlight and followed. Inside the church, hundreds of people stood silently facing a staircase leading underground. They weren't singing words. They were repeating my name. I found Calder's bloody jacket beside the stairs. His phone lay next to it. A new recording had been made only seconds earlier. I pressed play. My own voice said, "I'm standing behind you." Warm breath touched the back of my neck. I refused to turn around. Instead, I ran downstairs. The tunnel opened into a gigantic underground cavern. Hundreds of iron bells hung from chains across the ceiling. Each one carried a carved name. Then I found mine, Merrick Voss. Before I could move, something climbed out of a massive pit. It was larger than a house. Its body was made of stitched human skin. Faces constantly surfaced beneath it before sinking back inside. Its head was a giant bell fused into flesh. Every breath made the bell ring. The townspeople bowed. "Another name," they chanted, and another voice. The creature turned toward me. Pain exploded inside my head. I saw memories that weren't mine. Hundreds of people. Hundreds of deaths. Then someone grabbed my arm. Calder. He was alive. Thin. Covered in black veins. "It doesn't eat people," he whispered. "It keeps them." Suddenly, every shadow in the cavern peeled away from the floor and crawled toward the creature. Calder pulled me toward the stairs. "Run!" The bells all began ringing. One after another. Then they started saying names. Finally, mine. Merrick. It sounded exactly like my late father. I almost answered. Calder shoved me into the wall. It wants permission. We escaped into the town. Every house was dark. Then the bell rang again. All the doors opened. People stepped outside. Except they weren't strangers anymore. They looked like everyone I'd ever loved. My mother, old friends, even my first girlfriend. Together they smiled. "Come home." The giant creature unfolded behind the bell. Calder looked at me. "If it takes me, forget my name." Hands burst from the creature's body and pulled him inside. His face slowly appeared beneath its skin. "I'm already dead," he whispered. I ran. I don't remember reaching my truck. Police found me wandering 2 days later, nearly 60 miles away. They never found Calder. 6 years have passed. I changed cities, changed jobs, tried to forget Bellwether. Last month, I discovered a small wooden door in my basement that had never been there before. There is no handle, only a brass plaque. It reads, "Bellwether." Every night after midnight, I hear a single bell beneath my floor, then 3 slow knocks. I never answer, because the voice outside isn't just Calder's anymore. Every night, it sounds a little more like mine.